Welcome back to another episode of the KarterKast. I'm your host, Karter Baughan. On today's show, college football Week 8 preview. We discuss Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, Alabama, and a couple other games as well. We start off, though, discussing Ohio State's loss at Oregon. Oregon gets the big win against Ryan Day and the Ohio State Buckeyes. We discuss that game, the Red River Shootout, and then also Ole Miss choking at Baton Rouge on Saturday night. We get into all that to start the show. Dylan does his top 5 power rankings. I do my top 5 quarterbacks as always. And stay tuned to the very end because we'll have a winner of a college football parlay this week. Make sure to download SeatGeek. Use code KarterKast. $20 off your first purchase. Let's get into the show. We're live. Dylan and Connor here. College football Week 8 preview. Week 8 preview. But before we get into previewing the biggest game of the year, at this point, every week it's the biggest game of the year. It's Ohio State, Oregon. Now it's Georgia, Texas. It was Georgia, Alabama. Before we get into that, let's talk a little about Week 7 real quick. We did the live stream. Not a lot of people tuned in because we were right, Dylan.
No one wants to tune in when you're right. No one wants to tune in. The Texas one, over 10,000 views. I said Michigan was going to win, and it did great. And no one, why? Why, Carter? Why was no one tuning into the live stream after the Oregon game?
Because Oregon won.
And you can't, no, I want to say something real quick. You can't say, we were right. We were not right.
I was right about Texas. What do you mean?
Okay, all right, fine, Texas. But that, okay, all right.
No one cared about my Ohio State clip. They got like 20,000.
Yeah.
There's a couple people be like, "You got it wrong." I'm like, "Yeah, but I said Ohio State was gonna win." Like,
because it wasn't Dylan. Dylan's the face of adversity on this show.
Okay, I will take that back. You were right about Texas. A little thing just kind of swept under the rug here. Connor's video about Ole Miss did pretty well. I went back and I watched the tape. I said I was leaning LSU, so victory lap there too.
That game was. They blew that. They blew that one.
I didn't get to watch much of that one.
They blew it. That was bad. Go ahead.
Real quick, I was mad about that. We'll touch on the video. Ole Miss outgained LSU, more time of possession, significantly better third down efficiency. LSU was 6 for 17 on third down. Nussmeier 2 picks. It's exactly what I thought would happen. They still blew it. So,
yeah, that's
you know what? That's
the thing. Everyone's gonna look at that game who didn't watch and be like, you know what? Like Nussmeier, he's a pretty good quarterback. Nussmeier was terrible in that game. If you watch, I really like watching that game. You're like, how in the world did Ole Miss blow this game?
I see some prominent voices in the college football landscape saying that Nussmeier is like on the cusp of Heisman candidacy after that performance.
Shot.
I saw it.
That's what I'm saying. That just means they tuned in they're like, wait, this game's in overtime. Let me tune in. And then they saw the throw in overtime. Beautiful throw. That's all they saw. If you watch the full game, it was, oh my goodness, terrible mistakes, missed throws. It was bad. But, LSU got the win. That's all that matters. Yeah. And I said LSU in that, or I said Ole Miss in that one as well. I said Ohio State, so I got that wrong. But you know what? Texas won by 30+. I said they would win by 30+. And Oklahoma might have the worst offense in the country. It looks worse than Bryce Young and the Panthers. That's how bad it is.
You know what's funny is if you just look at, like, if you didn't tell me the final score of Texas Oklahoma and you just sent me a screenshot of some of those stats, I'd be like, oh man, that's a really close game. Like time of possession, very close. Oklahoma actually had more time of possession. You look at total yards, Oklahoma only had like 150 less. I'd be like, oh, like that was probably a pretty decent game. And you look at the score, just a complete throttling. So congrats to you, Carter, for being
breaking news. And this might be teetering. The Steelers will give Russell Wilson first team reps in practice as he'll likely make his season debut and start Sunday night against the Jets. It's Russie time, baby. It's why do we get we get the college news during the NFL show? We get the NFL news during the college show. Why can't they all just kind of they coincide for us? They need to know when we're recording. Well, Jets money line, Steelers by $1 billion.
We'll do a little sussy for Russie talk tomorrow.
Yes,
on the NFL.
100%. Just had to break the news.
Preview. But yeah,
good breaking news.
Yeah, that was good. That was worth it. Yeah, for sure. The funniest part about Oklahoma, and then we don't have to talk about that game. You can talk about Oregon, Ohio State here in a second. The funniest part is Hawkins and Jackson Arnold, they're both going to transfer, and they're going to be great quarterbacks elsewhere. I hope one of them transfers to USC and balls out with Lincoln Riley, and all these Oklahoma fans are like, well, why weren't they good here? It's because Burnt Vegetable's a terrible coach. Dylan, go ahead.
Did you come up with that name?
No, it was in the comments. It was in the KarterKast comments.
Shout out the comments.
That's a pretty good one.
I tried filtering through the comments. I could not find the guy. So whoever said it, whatever Texas fan said it, shout out you. I wish I had your name and that I could give you credit for. But no, Burnt Vegetable is a phenomenal one because he's not going to be the coach of Oklahoma much longer. Dylan, Oregon, Ohio State.
We touched on it during the live show. So I've had time to reflect, right? And this is obviously when the game ended, emotions were high. During the live stream, emotions were high. I've really had some time to sit down and reflect. First of all, I want to thank all of the people that commented, especially the returning viewers that would say, this is the guy that said Michigan was going to beat Texas. Thank you for returning to view. It means a lot to us. My conclusion about this game. So the biggest gripe that I got post-game is a 1-point win, right? Hard-fought battle. Close game down to the wire. Ohio State held their own against this Oregon team. No, it wasn't. This game was not close. There was nothing close about this game. You have Oregon misses an extra point. They miss a 2-point conversion. They get stuffed in the red zone when Dylan Gabriel had a guy wide open. That's not Ohio State's red zone defense being outstanding. That is Oregon missing a guy. That's on Oregon, and that's not to credit of Ohio State. You have an interception that was not called an interception that resulted in 7 points. That's a 14-point swing. Let's talk about the defense, okay? I'm sorry I was loud there, but the comments that I keep getting about, we're still a top 5 team. Oh, there's nothing to be worried about with this Ohio State team. Did you see that offense cooking? First of all, let's not talk about the fact that Oregon was missing their top pass rushing option in Birch, right? And they couldn't even run the ball. Quinshon Judkins, the guy the NCAA football game had to nerf because he was so good, throw him on a milk carton with Jack Sawyer, 10 attempts, 23 yards. He got big-bodied by the Oregon defensive lineman. Guys, that fumble, if you watch the game, right, you see a fumble on his stat line. It wasn't a fumble. He got big boy footballed by the defensive line. He said, give me that football. He didn't just punch it out. He said, you're a little boy with candy. I'm going to take that from you. It was the most embarrassing thing that I could have seen from this run game. Now, you know what? I was going to say something nice. I'm going to go with mean stuff first, and I'll go nice about Ohio State at the end. This defense, all I heard all year was how this defense under Jim Knowles has finally got its footing. Jack Sawyer, what a stud edge. You have Denzel Burke. Oh my gosh, Denzel Burke. He was an All-American preseason. 8 for 8 when targeted, 100+ yards, a touchdown. There were Evan Stewart tapped dance on his body for 30 yards down the sideline. It has to be one of the most embarrassing things that Ohio State fans had to watch. This defense is a huge issue. And if you want to say, oh, well, this is our first game that we've had issues defensively, you haven't played anybody. The first time you play an actual offense, you look that bad, and Ohio State fans are making excuses for it. Why are you making excuses for this defense that looked so bad? And Jim Knowles, right? When they hired Jim Knowles in 2021, I said, this is one of the best hires of the offseason. He was great at Oklahoma State, and the early returns of that hiring were great. The defense wasn't great in 22. It started to get better last year. It looked great this year. This was just an all-around embarrassing showing. This was Ohio State's first real test. They destroyed the bad teams they played. MAC champions. They failed. This was Oregon's first real test. They let bad teams they played hang in there. They destroyed Ohio State. The score's not going to reflect it. They destroyed Ohio State. Karter, I have more to say, but Karter, I would allow you to jump in here because it looks like you have something you want to say.
You can't say this was Oregon's first real test when they go down to the wire with Boise State and Idaho.
You can say on paper this is their first real test. So the Oregon defensive lineman that was out for the Ohio State game, he plays against Boise State. Boise State runs all over them. What's the difference there? The Oregon defense is not great either, Dylan. And you're just like the commenters. When did I ever say Oregon's defense was good?
I understand that. But when you look at this going forward, yes, the Ohio State defense has some problems. I'm not discrediting that. But also,
a lot of problems.
They have some problems.
A lot of problems.
Okay, then the Oregon defense has a ton of problems. Then
Karter, I'm not talking about the Oregon.
I understand what I'm saying.
You're the commenters with Ryan Day profile picture on X. I'm saying nothing about Oregon's defense. Nothing.
I understand that. But when you're saying Ohio State's in trouble, they're going to be one of the worst teams in the country, they're not going to be able to do anything going forward, they're not a top 5 team. Then meanwhile, you say Oregon's the greatest team in the country right now. It's a little hard to wrap around that when Oregon has an equally, if not worse, defense than Ohio State. Yes, they have a better offense than Ohio State. But if you claim, Will Howard stinks and this run game stinks, and they had a great game against Oregon, put up 30 plus, no problem. How are you going to...
Run game did stink. We
run
can't
game
act like
stink.
this run game was awesome
Run
against
game was
Oregon.
fine. Run game was fine.
No,
Whatever.
it wasn't.
Okay.
The 2 runs, Carter. There were 2 runs that were good there for Ohio State.
Time out. Skip Bayless. Time out. Will Howard threw all over that team, and you said Will Howard stunk.
You're disrupting the process of what I'm trying to do here. I said I have good things to say about Ohio State. I will get to the good things at the end.
I don't think
you
you will.
Concepts of a plan. Here.
I have concepts of a plan. I understand I'm going long. I'm trying to keep it short, but there's a lot of things to say here, and I want you guys to say your piece. I promise I will get to the nice stuff. I promise. Okay? The defense was bad. The run game was non-existent outside of two Travion Henderson runs, all while Oregon was missing their missing Birch, probably one of their best defensive players. Not to mention you have you want to talk about more about how dominating this was. You have the Oregon player that spits on the Ohio State player and just throws Ohio State right at the goal line. I'm not condoning spitting on players. Absolutely disrespectful.
Undisciplined.
Can't do it undisciplined. And I was flipping out when it happened, but that's important context to add. The last negative thing I want to touch on. I, as a human, have my flaws. I am stubborn. Sometimes I'm a little too passive and don't care about things for my own good. But I have my pros too. And those that know me will say I'm a very patient man. I'm very patient, I'm cautious, and I'm very slow to judge. Some say it might be my spiritual gift. Shout out Christians. Last year, Ohio State fans around me were calling for Ryan Day to be fired after the loss to Michigan as a favorite. And I said, guys, you're not going to go find a coach better than Ryan Day for what Ohio State has. You get 10, 11 win seasons, you make the playoffs a couple times. That is a Mississippi State fan's dream. That's a Florida fan's dream. They'll take Ryan Day any day. I said the same thing with Harbaugh when he was losing to Ohio State when he started. My patience has run out because the end of that game, the coaching at the end of that game gives Ohio State fans every reason to want Ryan Day out. You have to be in your quarterback's ear saying, hey, you have 6 seconds left. No matter what you do, you either have to complete this pass to the sideline or you have to throw it away. And the whole not knowing that the clock still runs when a play, the offensive pass interference, that is 100% coaching malpractice. Ohio State fans, you have to be not a midseason firing. You have to consider getting rid of Ryan Day at the end of this year, especially if you lose another game, which is, guys, completely possible. There are, I would say, 2 more realistic spots where they could lose games. But we don't have to talk about that right now. The Day, a huge problem. That you have to assess that situation at the end of the year. Now, good things, right? Everybody wants to say, Dylan, your video was wrong. Oregon didn't win by 3 scores. Well, if you watch the game, it should have been a lot worse. I was wrong about Will Howard. Aside from the last drive, I was wrong about Will Howard. I said he was not much of a passing threat, and he took great care of the ball. Even that first throw that should have been an interception was not Will Howard's fault. That was just a great play by the defense. Will Howard impressed me, and that's something that I'm going to have to note moving forward when we talk about Ohio State, Penn State, Ohio State, Indiana, these big games. I was wrong about Will Howard. Hand up, and for everybody to say, oh, Dylan's biased. Yes, I'm a Michigan fan. You're not sleuthing around to find that information. But I will call it as I see it. Will Howard looked great Saturday.
That's it? We're done?
Great.
We got it? Yeah,
that was great.
I think that's all I have. I'm looking through my notes. The biggest thing, Denzel Burke. Like, that's a huge problem because he is a huge part of that defense. And Dylan Gate, I guess I'll be done. I'll let you guys talk.
I think the point you made, I 100% agree with, is the Ryan Day part of things. His only big win was Notre Dame.
And I understand, flip-flopping Dylan here. I want to add context. The numbers that are swirling around his record against top 5 teams is they're top 5 teams for a reason. Like, if you're not supposed to win all those games.
Yeah, no, but
some of them.
Some of them, sure. Some of them, sure. What, 2-6?
When you're putting $20 million plus into NIL money in this team, you win the top 5 games. When you're supposed to be a national title contender year after year, you win those games. The consistency of this program has been they beat everybody that they're better than, and then finally when it's an even so-and-so even matchup, Ohio State fumbles every single time, other than that Notre Dame game, which the Notre Dame game, I mean, someone scores a touchdown, you win that one. It was 10-3 or whatever.
10 men on the field for Notre Dame, so even that has an asterisk. Here's what this year, and that's another thing I want to bring up. We're talking about Ryan Day. What about Dan Lanning throwing 12 players on defense at the end there? Knowing on purpose to prevent a big play, a penalty gets called, the time runs off. Like, Ryan Day just got outclassed from start to finish in that game.
And real quick on the coaching, I want to hit on this point. I think Dan Lanning and offense coordinator Will Stein deserve a lot of credit because Dylan Gabriel has not run the ball this year. That read option has not been an Oregon's game plan this year. That 27-yard touchdown to start the fourth quarter is something I think they saved for a game like this. So I want to give them credit for that.
I want everybody. Do any of you guys have anything else, any points you want to make about the game? Because I do have a question that I want to ask before we move forward.
I just have some Ryan Day stuff, but that's it.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Ryan Day stuff. Yeah, Ryan Day. It's now or never. And you mentioned, Ohio State fans, you should be happy with a guy like Ryan Day. You win 10, 11 games. I'm sorry, but he inherited Urban Meyer's roster. Everything was given to him with a silver spoon, and he hasn't really done anything with it. He hasn't elevated
unlimited funding.
And you have unlimited funding. He has the number 1 funded team in college football right now, most likely. This is crazy that we're sitting here being like, oh, but Ryan Day, he's a good coach. He does really good things. He wins 10 games. I'm telling you what, I'll win 10 games at Ohio State. I'll win 10 games. You're telling me I get to play Iowa, I get to play Northwestern, I get to play Purdue, I get to play the MAC schools. I'll win 10 games. Oh, but then when it's time to play Michigan, it's time to play Penn State, who this year is going to be a good game in Happy Valley, and then they have to play Oregon. It's finally time to win the big game, and they can't. Now they're going to get into the playoff if they go 10-2, but are they going to do any damage in the playoff? Man, I'll tell you what, history says no with Ryan Day.
And that is why I've given him the benefit of the doubt in the past.
I have too.
When he doesn't have his own roster, like you said, he had a good roster from Urban Meyer, but now it's his roster. They give him the money to go get the guys, and now it's like, dude, if you don't do it this year, we spent all this money on guys. You spend millions of dollars on someone to go 2.3 yards per rush attempt with a big boy, like just handing over the ball to the defense. And that is the problem. Now, one more point I want to make. I said it in the Big Ten show, I'm fairly certain. The offensive line was a worry for me as well. I didn't say it in the clip, but you go get Chase McLaughlin from Alabama. Notoriously was the guy that lost the game for Alabama in the Rose Bowl. Just awful snaps. He had those under control. Let me read you something here. These are the positions of the top-rated pass rush blockers. Okay, again for the clip. I'm going to read this off for you. These are the positions of the top-rated rush blockers from the Ohio State-Oregon game on Ohio State side. Wide receiver, tight end, center, wide receiver, tight end, wide receiver. Those are your top rush blocking grades from this game. Now, let's do a little fun exercise because the run game did not get going for Ohio State. Let's go pass blocking, right? We're on Ohio State. Good. Top-rated pass blockers. You have left guard, number 1. Good. Donovan Jackson had a good game. Halfback, tight end, halfback. That's a problem. That is a problem for your offensive line if your top blockers are going to be skill players. Now, but anybody else have anything before I ask a question?
Yeah, it showed because I wanted to touch on Quinshon Judkins. Yes, I get it. A great pairing with TreVeyon Henderson. The backfield, on paper is should be one of the best 1-2 punches in the college football. I know games have been blowouts for Ohio State in most cases this year, but Judkins has not had more than 14 carries in a game yet. He averaged over 21 a game last year, carries per game for Ole Miss. I'm just curious, quick question for you guys. Does this timeshare with TreVeyon Henderson ultimately hurt either of their draft stocks or future? Or is it more of a smart thing because maybe their legs get saved, they're on the field less injury risk, less usage, and people at the combine still know they're talented? I'm just curious how two clear starting running backs, these two guys would start on almost any team in college football. They're on the same team. I don't know if that hurts them or not.
We have this conversation mainly with the NFL. I remember having it with Pollard and Spears, specifically Pollard, and how certain running backs thrive in the secondary role. Some thrive as the bell cow back, not Mississippi State. And that's a great question. And to be honest, I don't have an answer to it. But I did hear a lot about how, we have Ohio State. We have two running backs at Ashton Jeanty level, and you couldn't stop Ashton Jeanty. That just goes to show you either Oregon's rush defense is better than what it looks, or Ashton Jeanty's just a freak. One of the two.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know.
I think it hurts their stock because these guys, when they were
separated.
Well, Henderson was injured a little bit last year.
He's been injured constantly throughout his career.
Yeah,
it's more so Judkins. He was getting 25 carries in some of these big games, 30 plus carries in these big games for Ole Miss last year.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I guess you'd kind of compare it to Donovan Edwards, Blake Corum a little bit, but
yeah.
But the problem is they just had such a good offensive line. It just, you throw anybody back there, they were going to be able to.
It didn't matter.
Last comment I want to make before Dylan poses this question: Kyle McCord wins that game.
No.
I'm all bit. You know me. I'm big on the Kyle McCord love, right? And that a lot of people don't like that. But I understand it's going to be very easy to put this loss on Will Howard because of how the game
really
ended.
His fault.
It was not. I mean, Will Howard did almost everything he could.
That was bait.
And also, everyone's like, "Oh, Kyle McCord wins that game." It's like we've seen Kyle McCord on late game drives. Guess what? Guess what happened against Michigan? Didn't even complete a pass hardly.
That's true. But all around, great game. Ohio State fans, you can act like you're not worried. You have to be worried. The question I wanted to pose, and I kind of hinted at this, Ohio State, up until this point, dominated their competition. Their easy competition. Oregon played just about everybody close again, except Oregon State and Michigan State. And a lot of people were talking about, Oregon, they're not beating these teams handily. Are we at the point now to where it just doesn't matter how these good teams take care of the bad teams if they play them close, as long as they beat them?
I think final score-wise, yes, but I think we're still at the point where there are certain takeaways we can make where it's like, man, that Oregon rush defense let Ashton Jeanty run all over them. He turns out to be a Heisman candidate, but like in the moment, it's like those are still takeaways we need to have. Like I don't want to just look at the final score and be like, all right, they won, that's it, let's move on.
Yeah, because we talk about, I guess Kentucky's a bad example because they're not that bad. But maybe Kentucky is that bad. Like you look at the Georgia game, and I even said this too, where I'm like, it's just a Georgia stinker. Don't worry about it. It was a big worrisome thing to look at when you talk about that game.
But even like Connor, what you said about Ashton Jeanty and the defense, like it showed up in this game when it mattered. Or maybe Ohio State's rush attack isn't as good as everybody says it is. That's I'm not ruling that out at this point. So it was just an interesting question because every year, week 4, we're sitting here, we're like, we really don't know what to say about these teams. We're talking about Ohio State crushing teams 50-3, and then they drop a game by 1 that should have been, the score should have been a lot worse than it actually was. So
yeah.
Anyway, that was
real
a lot.
Quick before we do Dylan's top 5, other question I wanted to pose is anybody truly elite this year? Because it seems like every single team in college football is vulnerable except maybe Texas.
That was going to be my answer. Is Texas is the only team that you could really put in that 1A top class tier, and even then, I could still see Texas being a little bit vulnerable.
Yeah, because I mean they haven't played a great offense, but I still believe in this Texas team, especially on the defensive side of the ball. We'll find out against Georgia this week.
It's weird because we're so used to seeing like teams like Georgia. It's like, they're first, second, or third in every single major category in college football. And like there's always like 2, 3, maybe even 4 elite teams. Even if they have one loss, like we know who the top 4 teams are. I don't feel very confident in a top 4 or 5 this year.
And that's why people are saying, this is why college football playoff expansion stinks. I think the complete opposite.
Makes it better.
I think the 12-team playoff, I was telling Dylan this on the live recap. We're going to have Ohio State versus Ashton Jeanty. That's probably going to happen this season. That's going to be an electric game, and that's going to be a competitive game if Jeanty's healthy.
I love it. Yeah.
That run
I think you're right. There are very few teams that separate themselves from the top. I understand you can have questions about the defense. They were missing their best defensive player. I mean, Oregon has the best win in the country. You have to put Oregon up there. And we'll get to it. I'll do the rankings. We'll get to it. But
vulnerable though.
They do look vulnerable. If Boise State comes into your building and makes it a 3-point game and almost wins that game, you are a vulnerable team.
But that's an example of one of the games where it's like Oregon played these teams close. Does it matter? Like
that's what I'm. But no. I'm still saying Oregon's a good team, but I don't think they're head and shoulders this elite team. That's what we've seen in the past with Stetson Bennett and those Georgia teams, or Mac Jones and Bama, or Joe Burrow and LSU. They're nowhere near that tier.
They're not immune to being upset.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, that's what we mean by vulnerable. But get to your rankings.
Oh yeah, I'm excited for this, Dylan.
You might be the only one. We'll start bottom to top, as always. Number 5, Iowa State. Great defense, Rocco Beck. I've always said since day one, guys, since day one, if you win your games, you'll be in my top 5. No matter who you play, no matter how bad they are. If you're undefeated, you'll be in my top 5.
Oh.
I've said that since day one.
Okay, I better. Okay, see who number 4
since
is.
day
then.
one, I've said it. Don't go check the tape.
Okay, who's number 4 then?
Number 4 is Miami. Miami, Florida, number 4. Number 3, Penn State. Close one against USC, and I didn't get to watch that game. But whatever play they ran where the center declared eligible, awesome play.
You know what play they ran, Dylan? Their tight end, Tyler Warren, 17 catches, 244 yards, and a touchdown. He had like 20-plus targets. That's insane.
That's Michigan football right there. Target your tight end 20 times. Anyway, this isn't about Michigan. Number 2, Texas, obviously, great team. Beat Oklahoma. Big win against Michigan at the beginning of the year. Then number 1, Oregon. You can't move them down after a win. So
first
5 out.
Yeah.
First 4. Okay.
Whatever you want to do.
First 4 out. We'll go first 5 out. 6 Alabama. 7 Georgia. Well, Alabama beat Georgia. 8 Michigan. Asterisk Tuttle when Tuttle starts at quarterback. 9 Clemson. 10 LSU. And I did an extra one. I have 11 Ohio State offense, and then 103 Ohio State defense.
So you say you win your games, you should be in the top 5. Where's BYU?
Oh, good call. 6-0.
So the top 5 teams that I have are all undefeated. So what I will do, just for you, Carter, I'll put BYU at 6.
Okay,
that's perfect.
Everything shifts down.
Yeah.
So that puts Ohio State defense at 104.
104. Yeah, there you go. Curious on this. So you're keeping Bama above Georgia since the head-to-head.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I just want to ask you this on a real note. You have Iowa State 5, undefeated. I get it. In your heart of hearts, do you really think Iowa State's a better football team than Georgia or Alabama or even Ohio State? Be honest.
Gotta be honest. I've maybe watched 10 minutes of Iowa State football.
Do you just text us when the box scores tight at the end of the first quarter?
Yeah, and then I bet on them to win the Big 12. So I'm hoping maybe some big media conglomerates see this, and I don't know what I'm hoping for. But undefeated, they won all their games.
That's fair.
They're ahead of them. Everything's ahead of them. So,
all right.
Who would you? This is not a power ranking. Yeah, yes it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah, I was gonna say it is a power ranking.
You're right. It is a power ranking.
Yeah, that's literally what it is.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Don't ask too many questions about this.
Win all your games. Where's Army? 6-0.
Oh, does Dylan hate the troops? Does Dylan hate the
I
troops?
love the troops. My stepdad was in he served. So
Bryson Daly Heisman.
I love the troops, but I need you to be in a power 4.
Okay.
That's my excuse there.
All right, that works. Should I do top 5 quarterbacks now?
Yes, you should.
All right, top 5 quarterbacks. This was awful after this week. This was awful. Number 5, Jackson Dart. I still think he's a good quarterback. I don't know what's going on there at Ole Miss. I don't know what's happening. I think it's a scheduling thing, too, where their schedule's just been awful. They need a bye week more than any other team in the country right now. Number 4, I'll see if I'm allowed to do this. Can I put number 4 Quinn Ewers / Arch Manning?
Quarterback room. So this is like a quarterback room.
Because either one of those, if I get both of those, they move up to 2. But if I only get one of those, it's at 4.
I think it has to be 1.
Yeah, I'm going to disallow that.
Okay, so either one, put them at 4. Quinn or Arch. Put them at 4. Number 3, Shedeur Sanders. I know they lost to Kansas State, but that dude is the only reason why Colorado's a relevant program and why they even get near winning a game. Otherwise, they would be an 0-12 football team. Number 2, Dylan Gabriel. You have to do it. You literally have to. Number 1, Cam Ward. He's the best quarterback in the country.
Oh, where'd Jalen Milroe go?
Jalen Milroe.
Jalen Milroe's gone. Yeah.
Jalen Milroe has been stinky poo-poo butt the last couple weeks. This guy stinks, Dylan. I begrudgingly, I did not want to put him in the top 5 at all last week. I go, you know what? He played so well against Georgia. Like, okay, he's got some good stats. His numbers back it up a little bit. And then you watch the Vandy game, and then you watch the South Carolina game. Oh, my goodness. This is why I never believed in this guy. But anyhow, it's a different story. That's my fault on the rankings. Maybe the integrity of the rankings isn't quite there yet. Maybe it's
I think it's some parameters.
It's a fluid situation for both of our rankings. It's fluid.
Yeah, it's always fluid. Yeah, week to week. Anyhow, you guys ready to preview some games?
Yes. I'm ready. I'm so ready.
College football week 8, October 19th. Let's do this. Big week of college football. Let's start off. Georgia, Texas. Game is in Austin. Texas is a 3.5-point favorite. Dylan, I'll start with you.
Coming into both of these SEC games, I was like, what am I going to do here? Like, I don't feel very strongly either way. When you look into the stats, some of the things that kind of point out to me, I broke everything down by personnel almost. Who has the better personnel groups in terms of positions, offensive line, defensive line? Here's what I came up with. Interrupt me if you disagree. Secondary, Texas. Offensive line, Texas. I think they have the best offensive line in the country. I think they have the best pass block grade. Defensive line, Texas. Wide receiver, Texas. Running back, Georgia. Quarterback, Georgia.
Wrong.
Quarterback, Texas. I think that's my disagreement.
That's the only one you disagree with?
I cannot get the Carson Beck first half performance against Alabama out of my head. I know he's put up some great stats against bad teams, but I cannot shake that.
That would be my counterpoint, is you take away 2 quarters. Carson Beck's put together a pretty good season. Kentucky, I guess. They weren't able to run the ball, though.
And then who else did they play?
13 points, yeah.
I guess Clemson, that win's looking better and better.
Yeah.
That was, what, 2 months ago?
That was 2 months ago.
Well, it's part of the season. What are we doing? We just come on now. What are we doing here?
Slow,
In my opinion, Texas has a huge advantage on defense, a much more successful pass rush, best team in the nation in coverage, top pass block rating. The only area where Georgia has the advantage here is in the run game. I do think that Etienne Jr. Is better than Jaden Blue, but everything else says Texas takes care of this game. The defense steps up. I think the offense will get it going. I love Texas in this spot. Texas minus 3.5. I don't think this game is particularly close. This is my olive branch to you Texas fans out there. I know we got some followers. People watch the show. Karter, you earned your good graces. This is my olive branch to you guys.
So that's it, Texas.
Texas, big. I think this is a real wake up call for Georgia.
Oh my goodness, we're gonna have the college game day graphic, aren't we, Connor?
Oh,
we 100% are. I've got a spiel here. Texas obviously convincing win last week against Oklahoma. Like I just said, I cannot get the Carson Beck first half against Alabama out of my head. I know he's put up numbers against bad teams. I just think of that in a huge spot, how he performed there. Meanwhile, Texas defense leads the nation in scoring defense, passing defense, and yards per play allowed. They've surrendered a touchdown on just 1/3 of opponent red zone trips, first in the FBS. Texas defense is elite, better than Alabama's defense, who Carson Beck struggled against for much of that game. Georgia, 1-5 against the spread this season, hasn't covered since Clemson week 1. This is not the elite Georgia defense we're used to. Usually we're like, oh, Georgia's first in this and second in this major category and third in this defensive category. Yeah. Not this year. Georgia gave up 41 points to Alabama, 31 to Mississippi State this last weekend, 21 in the second half of that game. It was also 14-3 at halftime against Auburn 2 weeks ago, and then they barely squeaked by with 13-12 against Kentucky. Georgia defense, 67th in opponent pass yards per play. Pass defense has not been consistent. Here's why I think Texas wins. Has Georgia had a convincing full game yet? Since week 2. Clemson, yes. Week 2 against the Cupcake, yes. Since week 2, have they played a convincing 2 halves, 4 quarters of football? I don't think so. Meanwhile, in a year defined by upsets through 7 weeks, Texas has yet to win a game by less than 19 points. They have looked good against everybody they've played. Even with Arch Manning playing, I know Quinn Ewers started slow against Oklahoma. I think he's settled in. I think he'll be fully integrated and back for this Georgia game. And I refuse to trust Carson Beck against a Texas defense that's been elite through these first 6 games. I think Texas minus 3.5 is a great play this week. I think it's going to be double-digit win for Texas. I think you're right, Dylan. Wake-up call for Georgia.
And to add to that, Georgia didn't put 2 halves together against Clemson. That first half was very close. That was
That's
a
fair. You know what? That's
slugfest.
true.
That was a rock fight. That second half is when things blew open because the Clemson offense couldn't complete a pass. But
Yeah, and the Georgia defense, real quick, they've been middle of the road, but for Georgia standards, they have not been nearly what we're used to.
Yep.
Yeah.
I 100% agree.
Well,
Go ahead, Dylan.
I want to entertain a path here. I am on Tech. I think Texas wins. I think they win big. I'm confident in that, but I do want to entertain one small scenario where Georgia might be able to capitalize on some things here. We see a bigger drop off for Texas quarterbacks in their passer rating when clean and under pressure, about 30 points. But for Georgia, it only drops 2. So if there is a world somehow, some way, Georgia is able to pressure Quinn Ewers, that might open the game up for Georgia a little bit. The problem is the Texas offensive line is so good. I don't know if I see a world where Georgia's able to get that pressure.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point. And then also, I think this is Georgia's path to winning this game. Quinn Ewers is not 100%. That's my big concern coming into this game. We watched the Texas OU game. He was missing throws. He wasn't comfortable. Yeah, you look at the score, 34-3. Great. Texas was miles better than Oklahoma, but Quinn Ewers was looking a little rusty in that game.
It was better as the game went along, though, right?
He still would miss throws throughout the game. And that's why I was concerned, where it didn't matter. And also, they were working with short fields because the defense was just obliterating them. Quinn Ewers really didn't have to do much in that game. I don't know if that's rust. I don't know if that's this guy came back a little too soon from a weird shoulder injury we really don't know about. So that's my big concern with Texas. Besides that, you look at everything else in this game. Dylan mentioned it. I don't have to repeat it. Texas has the advantage in almost every single spot in this game except maybe the run game. I think Georgia's path to winning this game is Quinn Ewers is still looking a little rusty / injured, and then you can't bench him. You can't bring in Arch Manning unless he's seriously hurt. And then it comes, okay, Georgia's getting pressure on an injured Quinn Ewers. It comes to a point where would Texas ever pull Quinn Ewers and put in Arch in this game?
They would have to wheel him out in the cast or something if they did that.
If he's injured, that's the only.
I think
that
so too.
Only.
And that's why I think that's Georgia's path to victory. Other than that, it's Texas in the spot. We also talk about, I don't even know if you mentioned it, Dylan, the Texas D-line against this Georgia offensive line. They're going to be able to get pressure in this game. They're going to be able to swarm Georgia. This game's in Austin. This game's in Texas. That's a big advantage. That's one of the best home environments in the country. I don't see how Texas loses this game, to be honest. I take Texas minus 3.5 here.
We might be a pro-Texas show now when they don't play Michigan. Shout out Nash, our boy Nash, right?
I've been on this Texas train. If I could, literally after week 1, I go, I should have switched my pick from Texas to Ohio. I had Ohio State as my national champion preseason. Should have switched it to Texas immediately after week 1.
I do want to say real quick, this is like at least how I will wrap up for me. Georgia. Their game plan is also going to be just keep the ball out of Texas's hands. Like they're going to want to run the ball because that's what they do the best. So aside from picking a side, I do also like the under here because I don't think Georgia's not going to have any interest in throwing the ball unless they get down big early.
And that's another thing to point out where, are you impressed with these Georgia receivers at all?
No, Carter, that is a great point because I had thought about Georgia teams in years past and how the offenses look worse, like than Stetson Bennett, Georgia. Even last year, like you lose Ladd McConkey, you lose Brock Bowers, and this offense, I mean, it just looks completely different in terms of receivers and tight ends. So you might be onto something there too, because I thought of that throughout this week when I was doing prep.
Texas has an elite secondary,
very good secondary, very good in coverage.
That's why I think Texas. I think Texas is clear, far away the best team in this country. Hook 'em left and right. I mean, it's Texas minus 3.5. Now we're gonna get that text. We're gonna text each other before the game, be like, "Oh my gosh, dude, the line's down to 2.5."
Georgia, that's a pick 'em.
97% of money's on Texas.
Oh yeah. Oh, the sports book's biggest need. They're on their knees for a Georgia win. And then I'll still take Texas and lose money.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Texas
you know,
line.
Yeah. Texas alt line. Give it to me. Alabama, Tennessee. Alabama's a 2.5-point favorite in Knoxville. Connor.
As the resident Knoxville resident on this show, I went into this thinking I was going to like Alabama in this game. The more I look into it, number one, both teams were lucky to escape with a win last week. They both should have lost. They both should have lost at home, if we're being completely honest, to South Carolina and Florida. Bama defense versus Tennessee offense. Movable object versus stoppable force. I mean, I don't think there's a better way to put it. Alabama defense, 63 points given up over the last 10 quarters. 8 of those quarters were against SEC powerhouses, Vandy and South Carolina. So there's my number 1 point. Number 2, Tennessee offense, 25 points or fewer in 3 straight. Failed to score 20 points in regulation the last 2 games. I don't know what to do. Bama D versus Tennessee offense. Don't feel great about either of those. Here is where I make my claim. Alabama's rush defense, shaky so far. They're ranked 47th in opponent rush yards per game. They allowed 132 to South Carolina and then 166 in that loss to Vandy. Meanwhile, Tennessee ranks 4th nationally in rushing yards per game. Yes, they've had a few cupcakes. I want to put an asterisk there. Those are slightly skewed because of some early blowout wins. But Dylan Sampson has been great this year.
Stud.
In a year where Nico has struggled in the last few games, Dylan Sampson has been that consistent, steady hand on offense. 112 rush yards versus Florida, 140 versus Arkansas, 92 versus OU, 132 versus NC State in that route. He has been great. These are still mid-tier SEC defenses he's going against, and he's still putting up numbers. Sampson's also 2nd nationally in rushing touchdowns with 15, only trails Ashton Jeanty, who has 17. The one thing that worries me for Tennessee in this spot is playmakers on the outside. I think Alabama's weapons are better. Tennessee's wide receiver room is the definition of average. Like, Squirrel Wright, fine. Brew McCoy, fine. Yeah, the definition of average. And that does not do any favors for a young quarterback like Nico. However, UT defense has been their strength. 6th in NCAA, less than 81 rush yards allowed per game. 5th in total yards per game. 2nd in opponent yards per play. I trust Tennessee and this defense to make life hard on Jalen Milroe. That is my calling card here. I believe Josh Heupel is going to have a run-heavy, Dylan Sampson-centric approach to this game. I think they're going to try to control time of possession. And last point I make, if South Carolina can win time of possession and if Vandy can have 42 minutes of possession against this Alabama defense, why can't Josh Heupel and Dylan Sampson do this for Tennessee? So I like Tennessee to win here. I like Tennessee outright. And if you're giving me +3, +3.5, I'll take that too.
Dylan.
Sorry, that was kind of long, but
No.
It's okay.
No, I have points I want to talk about, but I want Dylan to go first.
You have points, Carter?
I want Dylan to go first, though.
Couple things that stick out to me. Here's what I'll say, Connor. I agree. Dylan Sampson's been a stud. We even do our little anti-Dylan bit. Carter's anti-Dylan Wilkerson, anti-Dylan Gabriel, but not anti-Dylan Sampson, right? Is that still?
He's been great.
Absolutely not.
Okay. I will agree with you there, Connor. Here's what worries me when I was going through this. Alabama, strength of schedule, 6th. Tennessee, 81st.
Yes. Now Tennessee started with some cupcakes. Some of those numbers are skewed, and I want to make that note.
And you said that you brought that up, so I'm not holding that against you. Alabama, passer rating when under pressure, 108. Tennessee, 34. Bama, turnover worthy play, 1.64%. Tennessee, 3.17%. There's a matchup here that I really want to highlight for Alabama. Overton on the edge and Keenan the third. Interior defensive lineman against Campbell and Spraggins, the right side of this offensive line for Tennessee. That's a huge problem. That is a ginormous problem for Tennessee. And we've talked about Nico. Listen, Nico guy. I'm a Tennessee fan, right? Everybody's going to say biased. Dylan, you're biased. I'll say when my teams are going to lose. I'm on Alabama here. But Nico, this is really a position to where going into the Oklahoma game, what did I want to see? I wanted to see Nico step up when it mattered. Oklahoma game, he really wasn't given that opportunity, right? The offensive line was decimated. Heupel said he put his foot off the gas. I cannot trust Nico in a big game like this, especially if it comes down to him game-winning drive. This offensive line is making life awful for him for Tennessee. Alabama will be able to generate pressure. They will force Nico to put the game into his hands. I don't trust him yet. And that's not saying he's a bad quarterback.
That scares
me too.
Me too.
He'll figure it out. But, I'm sorry, Mom. I'm going Alabama. I got to go Alabama here.
That is, and Dylan, I think real quick, Carter, that is the point that I was the most worried about. I am so much less confident in this pick than I am about Texas, Georgia. The way Tennessee wins this game is run first, run centric, Dylan Sampson, 25 carries. Do not put Nico in spots to make mistakes. But if it comes down to a game-winning drive, you're right. It's going to be hard for me to trust him.
And these, I think...
Dylan?
I think Alabama's rush defense can stop them. I really think they can. They're a top 10 rush defense. I don't know. And I think that you're right. The game plan is going to be run the ball for Tennessee and then let Nico, maybe some play action passes when it's not a pivotal moment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much success Tennessee is going to have running the ball. I think it's Alabama. I think it's Alabama big. I hate that I like both the favorites in the SEC matchup. Carter, before you go, I want to do the position thing real quick. Offensive line, Alabama. Secondary, Alabama. Defensive line, Alabama. Wide receiver room, Alabama. Quarterback, Alabama. Running back, Tennessee. That's really the only place I give them the edge.
I 100% agree. Dylan, this is a kumbaya moment for us. It's Alabama in the under.
I don't hate the under. I'm not going to take it, but I don't hate it.
It's Alabama in the under. Everything, you look at every stat, you look at every PFF grade, you look at just strength of schedule, big wins and whatnot. Everything in this game tells you Alabama should win. The only reason I'm not sitting here saying Alabama's going to win by 3 scores is because this game's played in Knoxville, and we know how crazy and how weird games can get in Knoxville. So I'm not going to sit here and say Alabama's going to win by 3 scores. If this game was at a neutral side, I would. And that's why I'm picking Alabama here, because you mentioned it, Dylan. You look at the offensive line versus the D-line of Alabama. Nico is going to get pressured, and we see what happens to Nico when he gets pressured. Not just the stats. Yeah, he ranks very low when he gets pressured, but also when you watch the games, you can see he's young and he freaks out. Now, I'm not saying Nico is going to be a bad quarterback, but right now he's struggling. We saw what Arkansas could do to him. Alabama's going to be able to do the same thing. And Connor, you also mentioned this. The wide receivers for Tennessee are so bad. They're not average. They're a bad wide receiver group. They are a bottom-tier SEC wide receiver group, and they also can't stay healthy. They're half the game, they're going to second stringers. They couldn't stay healthy against Florida in this game. I don't trust Nico on a 2-minute drive yet. We saw that once again. It helps big time that this game's being played at Knoxville. I don't like taking a road favorite in an SEC spot, especially a game in Knoxville at Tennessee. But this Tennessee offensive line is going to get obliterated, and Nico's not going to have a chance.
I would agree with you if I hadn't seen the path to beat Bama already. Are we going to sit here and act like Vandy's O-line's amazing, or we're going to sit here and act like South Carolina's O-line's amazing?
Vandy's O-line's not that bad.
But they still dominated time of possession, dominated the game against this supposedly great Alabama rush defense you guys are talking about. If I hadn't seen this, if this was week 1 or week 2, I would agree with you guys. But we've seen the blueprint to beat this Alabama team, and I don't see why a team Tennessee, which would be the best running back they've played, why can't they do that? Especially in Neyland Stadium.
But we've also seen the blueprint to beat Tennessee, and it goes more towards Alabama's strengths.
But if Alabama doesn't have the ball for more than 20 minutes, then
I don't know. I don't think that's what happens here.
And here's the thing.
That's eloquent, right?
Here's the caveat that I will give. I'd like Tennessee in this spot, but I don't say this for a lot of my picks. If Alabama came out and won by two or three scores, I would not be shocked at all. Genuinely. This is a game that feels like it could get out of hand if Bama gets hot early. And I think there is a path for Tennessee to win, and that's my pick, and that's my prediction for everything I just said. But man, if Bama comes out and wins by 14 points, I'm not going to be shocked. I will not be shocked.
Then let's give a score prediction then. How about that, Dylan?
Alabama 27, Tennessee 10.
Connor.
I'm going to go Tennessee 24, Alabama 20.
I'll go
game. That's Tennessee's path.
I'll go Alabama 27, Tennessee 17. And also, I didn't get to mention this either. Credit to Tennessee's defense. They're the only reason this team is relevant right now and why they're so good and staying in these games. Because this offensive line is such a problem. It's so bad. It's so bad.
Didn't you just trash Jalen Milroe? You're going to trust Milroe against this Tennessee defense? Has been pretty good.
Yeah, because we saw him do it against Georgia.
Yeah, true. Fair.
And this is, you can't have stats back this up, and I'm not going to use this to make my pick or anything, but how much credence do we put into maybe Alabama just can get up for big games, and they're just looking down on the Vandys and South Carolinas of the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a valid point to bring up.
Yeah, I mean, but also it's like you can't use that going into a game being like, well, that's why they're going to win. They got up for Georgia, and they didn't get up for South Carolina or whatever. And it's like, no, that doesn't matter.
Maybe this is the Nico Heisman moment we're waiting on, guys.
No, that's next season. That's a 2025.
Yeah, probably.
We can just keep saying Nico Heisman until 2025. So that's all we need to do there. Let's briefly touch on some games real quick, and then we'll get out of here. Miami Louisville. The line opened. I don't know how this opened. It opened at almost a pick 'em basically. Now it's a Miami -4, which I think it should be. This game's being played in Louisville. Look, I think before this game, before the season, you go, that's a weird spot for Miami. Going to Louisville. Louisville's supposed to have a good defense. No, give me Miami still. Miami finds a way to get it done. I'm not going to take a side on this game, but I think Miami just finds a way to get it done once again, and I don't think this Louisville defense is that special.
Yeah, that Louisville, their secondary and coverage, they're not great. And if there's one quarterback in this country that's going to expose that, it's going to be Cam Ward. Miami has a top 10 pass rush. I understand. Maybe I could just have to eat this and be wrong here. I wasn't that high on Shuck coming into the year. Maybe I'm just going to have to eat that and being wrong, but I think this might be the game where he looks really bad and people are like, okay, maybe he's not as good as we thought. I like Miami here too.
And they've also had a cupcake of a schedule of the games they've
119th.
won. Yeah, and then they play Notre Dame and lose. Like, this is not a great team. And they also looked meh against Virginia. But also, Virginia, not that bad.
The one thing that scares me is Miami has played down to their opponents this year. They've gone down big and come back miraculously. Virginia Tech, California especially, they were down 35-10 in the third quarter of that game and somehow came back and won. Louisville is a better team than California. They're a better team than Virginia Tech. Miami can't play around with its food in this game like they have in the last few games. So that would ultimately scare me if Miami goes down early. I don't know if they can fight back, but I do like Miami in this spot. Noon kickoff, a little bit weird in Louisville, but I think Miami will show up for this one. So yeah, I like Miami.
I do too. And also Miami coming off a bye after those close wins, I think helps a lot for Miami. So give me the Canes in that one. Michigan, Illinois. What's the line in this game? I didn't even look.
When I checked yesterday when I was doing my prep, it was Michigan minus 3.5. It opened at 1.5.
It's down to 3 on some books right now.
3. It's at
Michigan
Illinois,
-3.
Champaign.
It's in under.
That's tough.
43.5.
Do you like Michigan in this spot, Dylan?
So technically, here's what here's what we're gonna say.
Well, Michigan's undefeated, right? With the asterisks.
Michigan is undefeated with under the College Football Playoff Committee's rules that they set last year with Florida State. Michigan is an undefeated team, 0-0. I'm gonna give them half an O, technically, half and O.
Week 0 win, yeah.
Well, Tuttle outscored Washington 17-13 himself. Anyway, Michigan minute. We're not national championship contenders, right? We have a good defense.
Tax Slayer Gator Bowl contenders.
No, I think we
come on down to Charlotte for the Mayo Bowl, Dylan.
I think we got
Music City.
I think we shocked someone in here. So we shocked someone before the year ends, but
maybe
shocking
Thanksgiving.
Me with how bad you are.
That's funny guy, Car. Yeah,
maybe shock someone Black Friday that weekend. You know.
Not going to get into that right now. Anyway, defense looked bad. Michigan, Illinois. In all seriousness, Moore hasn't told us who technically the starting quarterback is. So, like, PFF still has Orgy listed as a starting quarterback. I have to imagine it's going to be Tuttle. I have to imagine that it's Tuttle for this game. Unless he's not healthy, which is why he didn't start in the first place. I have no clue. Ultimately, what this comes down to, Illinois' offensive line is really bad. Altmaier's been really bad under pressure. I just think that Michigan's going to be able to get home here and make life miserable for Altmaier. I am going to take Michigan. Everybody's going to say bias, whatever. I do think that Michigan is able to get pressure on Altmaier, and that's the difference in this game.
You know what?
Yeah.
Illinois almost lost to Purdue with a backup quarterback.
That's what I was going to say. If you let Purdue score almost 50 points on you, that scares me. So, like, yes, I don't like Michigan's offense, but the two times I've been very confident in a Michigan pick this year, they got trounced by Texas. I was right on that. And they beat USC outright. I was right on that. So I'm 2 for 2 on Michigan picks this year. I love Michigan in this spot.
Ooh,
I love it. Don't trust Altmaier. That Illinois defense just gave up 50 points to Purdue. Like you said, they should have lost that game. That's all I need to see.
Fine. I'll take Michigan too. Squad play.
Squad, right.
We all go Michigan.
Is there any – talk to me, football boys. You put in Tuttle 2 weeks ago. You have a bye week. Any hope in rejuvenation here? Any hope in rejuvenation?
He looks better than the other guys. But I don't. The problem is, like you said, they're not national title contenders, but the defense is good enough. I don't think they're a top elite unit in the country. Tuttle looked solid. Like, I don't know why he wasn't playing from the start, like at the beginning. I know he was injured and whatnot, but why was he not the guy from the beginning? Why was Orgy ever considered?
Orgy is better than Warren.
Was he?
Yeah. We don't need to do this, but yeah.
If you're some of those Michigan young guys, I mean, Tuttle's what, 8 years older than them? You got to have some confidence in that.
Tuttle's
right?
like 20. Yeah, he's like 27, 26.
It's like saying poop is better than diarrhea. It's like it's the same thing.
Not really. Nothing. We don't need to go. We don't need to go poop minute here. But give me Michigan.
Before we get into the parlay pick, I'm just gonna talk about some other things real quick. Connor, I know there is a 100% fact you want to take West Virginia +3 this week against Kansas State.
I won't lie. That line was looking at me like the Green Goblin mask in Spider-Man. It was like, please do it again, Garrett Green. Look at your Big 12 preview. I can't do it. That's not my parlay pick. But man, it was eyeing me down.
I saw that line and go, oh my gosh, Connor, he can't help himself. He can't help himself.
West Virginia is a 3 or more dog. I just can't. I can't stop staring at it. I don't know what it is. You're right though.
It cracks me up every time. I like under in the BYU game, Oklahoma State. This isn't my parlay pick, just giving a pick out for the people. I like under in the BYU Oklahoma State game. I think it's going to be terrible weather in Provo, mid-30s. It might snow during the game too. BYU's defense is elite. It's going to be a lot of running the ball, gross football. Give me the under.
I want to ask you, BYU 6-0. They're ranked 13th now, like pretty relevant on national stage. Coming into this year, you were low on them. What happened? Like I don't know how this happened.
Let's just say some people around the program were also low on them as well. And every fan was like 7 wins is an elite year. That we killed it this year if we got 7 wins. I'm not saying this, but I'm saying this. I've already looked at flights to Dallas to go to the Big 12 title game.
Oh my gosh.
And if BYU somehow ends up winning the Big 12 title game and plays in the college football playoff, there is a road trip happening the week before Christmas.
Have to. Honestly, if I was in your shoes, I'd do the same thing.
I have to. If this team goes 4-2, this is what we haven't discussed really in the Big 12. You mentioned Iowa State. Right now, we're looking at BYU versus Iowa State and maybe Texas Tech in the Big 12 title game. That is
wide open.
Gross. How many teams are going to hope they're the 5 seed in the college football playoffs so they get to play the Big 12 opponent? Because that's another bye, if we're being honest.
You think the Big 12 opponent will be 4th? Because I feel like the committee just hates the ACC.
Yeah, no, this isn't the NCAA tournament. Yeah, no, this is this is awesome. As a BYU fan, this is unbelievable. I can't believe what's happening. It's almost too surreal though, where you're like, all right, when is this going to end? Something's got to give, and so hopefully it's not against Utah. You got to win the rivalry game, but we'll just see. We'll just keep riding the wave, and I'll probably take Oklahoma State money line as an emotional hedge. So
Oklahoma State has been so disappointing this year. We were so high on the preseason. It's so frustrating.
Bowman got benched.
Bowman got benched.
Yeah, Bowman got benched to start a new quarterback. That's my kind of concern, but also backup quarterback going against this BYU defense. BYU's going to get pressure. Give me the under in that game. But let's do parlay picks. Ben's pick. I love this pick. Love this pick. Hate this team. Utah -4.5 against TCU.
Nice.
This is a Kyle Whittingham FU everyone game. There has been weird stuff going on behind the scenes with the Cam Rising stuff all season long, and I think Kyle Whittingham is finally tired of this, and this is a Kyle Whittingham masterclass against a terrible TCU team. Isaac Wilson's going to play just fine enough. They're going to cover the 4.5. I love that pick by Ben. But I guess, why did I have to defend Ben's pick? He needs to be on here defending his pick.
Ben's surely going to be locked into this game, though, right? Watching his parlay pick cash?
He might be in a hotel room at that point.
All right.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna have to watch. I'm gonna have to sneak off during Ben's wedding on Saturday to watch Texas Georgia. We'll see. Anyhow, Connor.
I just want to say real quick, Connor. I noticed you gave a little verbal confirmation about the joke we were making. You should not be. Should not be what? You should not be talking about that. I'm just saying.
About what?
Carter and I can.
What? Oh, please! I'm here for the 2 weekends of college football. Come on.
Wait. No.
That's not what we're talking about.
No, we're not trouble in paradise. We're talking. Dylan's making a sex joke.
Just saying you shouldn't be owling or anything.
I don't know what you're talking about. My virgin ears were covered on this show.
He's watching.
Yeah, no, Connor doesn't. Connor, it's okay, Dylan. Connor doesn't do premarital hand-holding. It's okay.
Yes,
good for you. Good for you.
He's courting for 5 years. Connor, what's your parlay pick?
Oh, man, you guys are going to love this one. We are getting gross and dirty in the ACC. We're going to Wallace Wade Stadium for a barn burner matchup between Duke and Florida State. Florida State plus 3.5 is my pick. I do not believe in Malik Murphy in this Duke team. They're 5-1. Florida State's 1-5. Everyone is pooping on Florida State, rightfully so. It's the ACC. Duke's losing this game. Give me Florida State plus 3.5.
Okay, screw it, I'm in.
Let's go.
Let's do it. We got Utah minus 4.5. We got FSU plus 3.5. Don't worry, my pick's going to be even grosser. But Dylan, what's yours?
I'm going to Texas. Let's give me under 56.5 in Georgia, Texas.
Okay,
I like that.
Fellas, we're going to Fayetteville. Woo pig suey. We're going Arkansas money line. We're going Arkansas money line against LSU. This is where LSU gets exposed. In the Brian Kelly era, it comes to a grinding halt. And because this LSU team isn't good, that Ole Miss team isn't good, and Arkansas, they're frisky. They're going to win that game in Fayetteville. Arkansas, sneaky, not a bad team. Not a bad team. They
awful.
can grind it out. And LSU, I just don't believe in that defense. And we saw what Ole Miss's defense can do to Garrett Nussmeier. What do you think this Arkansas defense is going to do on the road? Give me Arkansas money line. So
that might be a sharp parlay.
Yeah, that might be a sharp parlay. I kind of like it. But anyhow, that's it. Make sure to tune in tomorrow for the NFL show. Great show ahead of us tomorrow. Subscribe at KarterKast on everything. Make sure to download SeatGeek. Use code KarterKast, $20 off your first purchase. And we'll be back tomorrow. We'll see y'all then. Bye.